Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call. Today is May 14th. There is a lot to discuss. However, this will be a little bit of a shorter call. We had all of the family, including our little grandchildren, over for Mother's Day this weekend, and all the little runny-nosed Petri dishes were slobbering all over everybody and everything, and so I managed to catch a pretty bad cold, but I'm going to do my best today and go over the information because it's kind of important. I want to start with those of us that have been denarians. When I look at our client base, I have individuals that have held dinar for 30 days and other individuals that have held dinar for 20 years. So it's a real mixed group, purchasing currencies at different periods of time, different stages of their life for very different reasons. But we tend to fixate on these calls and, in our thoughts about specifically the monetary reform in Iraq. And we should, that's important. But it's time to understand that the reinstitution and revaluation of the Iraqi dinar is going to involve a much larger scheme in terms of what's going on globally and specifically in the Middle East. There was a recent meeting between Prime Minister Soudani and the governor of the CBI Iraq and Trump and Besit, which to me points to the fact that we are very, very close to the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar. And I think President Trump has done some things that are going to virtually guarantee that. What we've witnessed in the last couple of weeks with President Trump is he's basically orchestrating an economic and geopolitical realignment, not only in the Middle East, but in the world. We've discussed in the last few weeks the fact that he's transitioning to funding government and the country externally through tariffs rather than internally through taxes, a strategy that was used in a period known as the First Golden Age, the Gilded Age, and it's when the United States really became a wealthy nation, and I think we're going to become a wealthy nation again, not only because of the domestic policy being implemented, but by the fact that so many of us hold dinar and some of the other currencies as well. There's even an argument that if everything falls right, that the Vietnamese dong could go simultaneous or almost simultaneously with the Iraqi dinar. I don't know whether that's going to be the case or not, but the currency, in my opinion, that has the greatest leverage and the greatest opportunity for a revaluation in the very near future, of course, is the Iraqi dinar. But to get back to what Donald Trump's doing, he's reinstituting the Abraham Accords, which he established, and the Biden administration, for whatever reason, stumbled and bumbled their way into allowing that to sort of dissipate. And the Abraham Accords are kind of important because it's a loose alliance of Arab nations along with Israel that have determined that peace is more important than these sectarian issues that have been going on for millennia. Trump's been working with Russia and Ukraine to negotiate a settlement with regard to that war. In that process, Trump has secured a very lucrative rare earth mineral deal for the United States to assist Ukraine. In return for assisting Ukraine, he's forced really the removal of Assad in Syria, which has been a problem for peace in Israel as well. He's systematically neutering Iran through a series of efforts, reinstituting really draconian sanctions against Iran. He's arming the Saudis that are the mortal enemy of Iran. We think of Iran thinking the United States is their mortal enemy, but within the faith of Islam, we have the Iranians that are that are Shia, and the Saudis that are Sunni, and so the animosity there coming from the Iranian side particularly is being nullified by the assistance of the United States. And Trump's destroying Iran's proxies, the 3H Club, Hamas, the Houthis, and Hezbollah. At the same time, he's also negotiating release of the remaining hostages in Gaza, and they're assisting Iraq with the final stages of their monetary reform. So what he's instituting is security and stability in the Middle East, which is a prerequisite for the reinstitution and revaluation of the Iraqi dinar. So a lot's going on. Donald Trump has a lot to do with it. And certainly we all want world peace, but it's kind of a bumper sticker. What we really want is peace through global economic stability. And the revaluation of these currencies is really a reversal of what started over 100 years ago with the creation of these Western fiat currencies. The difference between a backed currency and a fiat currency is a currency backed by nothing other than the full faith and credit of a given government, whereas these backed currencies, the dinar and actually all of the currencies now as we go through Basel compliance, means that these nation states must respectively back their currency with assets, gold, silver, platinum, oil, other natural resources. So the formula seems to be peace in the Middle East equals trade and economic development, which equals the global sale of oil, which is the single most important commodity to run a modern society. And the sale of oil, in particularly a country like Iraq, means a substantial increase in the value of their currency. And to us, that means a substantial return on investment. It's no more complicated than this. Those of us that have been following closely know that Iraq, and we've said this for years, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, political instability, intrusion of Iran, other economic issues, the repayment to Kuwait, resolving the issues with the IMF and the World Bank and all of those factors. This has taken much, much longer than we had hoped or that we even thought it would take. I mean, people purchased currencies 10 years ago, did not think they'd be listening to a call like this a decade later, but here we are. However, I think all the pieces are in place. We have the right people in place in Iraq. Most importantly, we have the right people in place in the United States. And so we're going to be going to the banks, in my opinion, very, very shortly. Now, for those of our clients that have been listening faithfully and have taken our advice, they have established a trust package. And they've done basically 2 things. They've established the trust, and they've assigned their pre-valued currencies to that trust. Now, phase 2 is to protect that wealth and invest the windfall. Now, if we just take a bird's eye view of what happens to wealthy individuals, we know statistically that 1 out of 4 millionaires will be involved not in a lawsuit but in a frivolous lawsuit simply because they have wealth. And that's a magnet for frivolous lawsuits. But we also know that 1 out of 3 windfalls is lost within 3 to 5 years due to inexperience, mismanagement, and fraud. So here we have a situation where individuals, whatever their financial situation is, have a dramatic increase in wealth overnight with the reinstitution of the dinar and some of these other currencies. So the solution to ensure that you retain that wealth for yourself and for your children and your grandchildren is to place that wealth in trust and to adopt a long-term investment strategy. Now, I'm going to get into this a little bit, but I just want to mention one thing because we're getting to the point now. Now I'm talking not to people that are listening to the call and have not made the decision to contact us to establish a trust. Now I'm talking to individuals that have already established their trust And one of the strategies you can utilize post-RV to maximize your return and again, do it philanthropically. Let's say hypothetically you have 10 million dinar. And to keep the example simple, and let's say it revalues for $1. So you go to the bank, you exchange your dinar, $1, and you now have 10 million dinar. Now, because you set up our initial asset protection trust package and you assigned your currencies to that package, that increase in value was not ascribed to you personally. It was ascribed to the trust. And the USD from that exchange will go into a trust bank account that was established that day at that bank at the point of exchange. You now have $10 million in trust. No one knows that you have it. You operate under your Social Security number. The trust operates under an EIN number. And the trust has certain asset protection benefits that no individual could ever enjoy in their wildest dreams. So now you have this $10 million, and you've got to make some decisions. First thing you've got to do is pay taxes on it, and then you have to invest it pursuant to your risk tolerance, your age, all of those things. But one of the things you can do, reduce the tax burden, and theoretically even enjoy a higher income, is take a portion of that money and move it to something called a charitable remainder trust. What is that? Well, again, let's say you have that. You go to the bank, you exchange your currency, you have $10 million in that trust bank account, and decide you're going to transfer $2.5 million of that to a charitable remainder trust. Meaning you're going to take $2.5 million from that account and transfer it to a charitable remainder trust. What is a charitable remainder trust? It's simply a trust that you create, and the money in that trust will go to a named charity when you pass away. So again, to keep the story simple, you have $10 million in your asset protection trust. You transfer $2.5 million to your charitable remainder trust, meaning that that $2.5 million will go hypothetically to your church when you pass away. But there's another very important benefit, and it's this. During your lifetime, all of the income generated from that $2.5 million within that charitable remainder trust is tax-free income to you. So not only are you creating that charitable gift, but you're actually creating tax-free income for yourself for the rest of your life. So this is the way you can maximize your after-tax return and provide charitable benefits and have a substantial amount of money that's virtually impossible to take from you from lawsuit and will be there for your children and your grandchildren. Now let's take a closer look at the the asset protection trust. What are the benefits that you get from the assets in that trust? Again, the currency revalues. You go to the bank with your trust and your assignment form showing that the currencies are assigned to the trust. You negotiate your exchange, and again, the money goes into the master trust bank account. Because you've created this trust, and because you've assigned the currencies to the trust, and because the USD from the exchange goes into the trust bank account, you have protected your privacy and your anonymity. You are the beneficiary of everything in that trust. No one legally has the right to know what's in that trust unless you have defrauded them and they've gone to a court and made such proof. So basically, if you've done all of this work and you behave yourself, you're impenetrable. What else does the trust do? It allows you to avoid IRS scrutiny. Why? Because the business activities are occurring within the trust. You're merely the beneficiary of the trust. The trust also allows you to do pre-RV gifting to family and friends. Now, many individuals have contacted us and said, well, I want to give currencies to family and friends, but a problem gifting to this individual for any number of reasons. How can I provide something for them on a tax-preferred basis and still somehow manage to control that money so that they don't abuse it? Well, we created within the trust package a gifting subtrust. What this means is that you can gift the currencies to these individuals pre-RV through the gift subtrust, but you have control of the post-RV proceeds. So you've avoided the federal gift tax, you've protected their money the same way your money has been protected, and you now have control of the post-RV proceeds for the benefit of that individual. This can only be done through this trust, period, end of sentence, full stop. It cannot be done any other way. Another benefit of the trust is your estate will bypass the cost and delay of probate, meaning that when you pass away, no one will know the size of your estate, who your heirs are, and how much they stand to inherit. And second, the trust allows you to avoid the federal estate tax. This is the tax that's assessed on the transfer of your estate to your heirs. The federal estate tax can be as high as 55% of your entire estate in excess of $12 million. So if you have an estate of, say, $50 million, roughly $38 million of that $50 million is subject to the federal estate tax. However, if it's in our trust, there is no federal estate tax. That means 100 cents on a dollar goes directly to your heirs through the trust. Lastly, the asset protection benefits. Very simply, I'll break it down this way. Pre-RV, you're protected by something called the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act. Very simply, what this means is you can only be sued personally for the value of the asset when you transferred it out of the title to the trust. So if you had, once again, 10 million dinar that you purchased for $10,000, you assign them to the trust pre-RV prior to their revaluation. And let's say conservatively they revalued again for $1. Can you be sued for $10 million? No. You could only be sued for $10,000. Why? Because that's all the currencies were worth at the time of the transfer. So people that think they're smart are going to say, well, you know, all of a sudden he's living very large. I find out he's got this money in the trust. I think I'm going to go after that. Well, they can't go after the money in the trust for something they alleged you did, you know, earlier as an individual. So they go after you personally. Once again, that asset was only worth $10,000 when you transferred it out of trust. That's all they'd be entitled to pursue. Are they going to sue you for $10,000? Highly unlikely. Post-RV, there's a benefit I like to refer to as limited liability stop loss. This protects you from future bad acts after you've acquired this wealth. This protection is accomplished through something called segregation of assets. And what this means is once that money goes into the trust bank account, and let's say after that you begin to make purchases, homes, cars, boats, etc., each asset you purchase goes into a separate sub-trust, which means that if someone's suing you because they slipped and fell in one of your rental properties, or they're suing you because you drove your car through a stop sign and there was an accident, they're limited in the litigation to that asset because all of your other assets are in separate sub-trusts, which under the law are separate legal entities not involved in the litigation. So this is how you protect your wealth post-RV from any potential lawsuits. So you go full circle with the trust. You preserve your privacy. You have any number of ways you can invest the money. You can gift currencies directly or through investment through the gift sub-trust. Your estate will avoid the cost and delay of probate and the federal estate tax, and you're virtually impenetrable when it comes to lawsuits. So this is how you protect your wealth generationally. Now, our trust package is initially a package of 10 trusts consisting of one master trust that will hold your assigned currencies pre-RV and financial assets like bank accounts and investment accounts, etc. One optional gift sub-trust, again, if you want to gift currencies to family and friends through the trust, and then 8 additional sub-trusts for homes, cars, boats, etc. We can also add sub-trusts if needed. Now, this was the simplification of a rather sophisticated trust package we've utilized in the past for our more affluent clients, a package that had an initial cost of anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000. But by mass marketing this trust to denarians, we've been able to reduce the cost to $3,000. Pay us up front, we'll discount the price further to $2,500. We even have a deferred payment arrangement for individuals that simply cannot afford the $2,500 up front, you'd make an initial payment of $525 and just pay $100 a month thereafter. So we've done everything I can, or that we can, to make this trust available and affordable to everyone that have currencies for all of the reasons that we've discussed here. So let me go back to the beginning and state again that it looks like we're getting close. This has been a long slog. There have been disappointments, but Donald Trump is the president, and love him or hate him, he gets the job done. The first 100 days of his second term, he's done more than the previous administration did in 4 years. That's not debatable. Love him or hate him, that's not debatable. And he's just getting started. One other thing I'll mention is, I can't confirm this, but I've been told that the U.S. Treasury holds 4 trillion dinar. Now, that makes perfect sense that if the United States is going to assist Iraq, one of the things they'll get out of the deal is a benefit from the reinstitution. So that's a large chunk of money that another president might spend, but I think what Trump would do with it is either reduce the debt, build up the military. The reason I think he might build up the military and our infrastructure is because I've discussed this in other calls, I think he's going to get rid of the Federal Reserve altogether if he can. That's why they're going to continue to try to impeach him. They're going to come up with every reason they can, but they know he's an existential threat to their system since the creation of the Federal Reserve in 1913. This is the reason they went after him from the day he came down the escalator, and this is the reason they're still after him. They could come up with every other reason, but people who understand what's going on understand that that is the real fly in the ointment, the Federal Reserve, and ending the laundering system of the Washington elite forever. That's not just Democrats, that's Republicans too. They feathered their nests, and Trump's about to blow it all up, and they just can't have that. As a matter of fact, before I got into this call, another guy crawled out from under a rock to impeach Trump over something. So they're not going to give up. They're not going to prevail, but they're not going to give up. But I digress a little bit. The reason I bring him up is because he's the reason that this thing's going to happen. So love him or hate him, if you have currencies and you've protected them through this trust, you're in large part going to benefit from a lot of that because of the things that he's doing right now. If you're interested in the things we've discussed, I strongly suggest that you contact us to get our initial no-obligation package. You're under no obligation to do so. Everything you need is in the package if you wish to proceed, but again, you're under no obligation to proceed. You can review the package. Contact me directly if you have any questions. I'll be happy to assist you, but time is short. So if the things we discussed are of interest, contact us this week. We'll get the trust package out to you right away. Review it. And if you're ready to proceed, or you think that the things you see are things that you need and want, then please move quickly, because once this thing hits, I've even told our attorneys, I said, I don't know what you guys are going to do, but once this thing hits, I'm done. And I don't know that the firm is going to want to be producing any more trusts, just because of the large number that we have, and we'll be servicing those trusts. We'll be creating all of the sub-trusts to hold assets. As laws change, we may need to make certain amendments. People change their minds. People pass away. People get involved in other business activities. So our hands are going to be full just servicing these trusts now that they're being funded from the revaluation of the dinar and some of these other currencies as well. I am going to go to a Q&A here for a few minutes. Let me just get that on. And while I'm waiting for any questions, if you'd like to contact us, you can do so either by email or phone. Our email address is trusts with an S, unlimited, LLC @gmail.com. That's trusts with an S, unlimited, LLC @gmail.com. And our phone service is 307-274-4122. That's 307-274-4122. Contact us by email or phone requesting our trust package. We'll get it out to you just as quickly as possible, and we'll assist you in every way. So let's go to our Q&A here. Our first caller is area code 615. That's 615. Go ahead.
Hi, Jim. How are you today?
Okay. How are you, sir?
Good. There's been some chatter about the simultaneous revaluation of both the Vietnamese dong and the dinar. How do you feel about that? What's the likelihood, in your opinion?
Well, let me put it this way. Again, I've got to go back to Trump. Trump he looks at the big picture and the big thing. I think that the United States is such an integral part of the global economic system because we have, look at it from the perspective of these other countries. Who's their biggest consumer? The United States. Why? It's one of the largest countries, and it has per citizen, per capita, the largest disposable income. So now that we have a president that's ready to do business, these countries want to get involved. Add to that the tariff issue. So these countries can't function at a program rate. Vietnam is interesting because Vietnam has been in a closed umbrella with China for decades, but they've got a lot of, they're like Iraq in a sense. They're a wealthy nation. They have a lot going for them, and they're starting to put out feelers for trade deals with other countries. So it wouldn't surprise me if Iraq is just the first domino, and once Iraq hits some of these other countries, the rupiah, the bolivia, some of these other countries that we don't talk about very much might pop as well. And that's probably one of the reasons why Trump's basically been on a world tour. He's always 5 moves ahead of everyone else, and so I think that the Vietnamese dom going, if not simultaneously, very short thereafter, is very plausible.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Bye-bye now. Our next caller is area code 785. Yeah, 785. That's 785. Go ahead.
Hey, Jim. I was just reading on various sites about the rate of the dinar now at 13.10 and how they're able to sustain their economy. I mean, what I'm getting at is it been about a year and a half since they stopped the citizens from using the dollar. So therefore, how are these citizens able to operate? I mean, it costs, I don't know how many dinar just to buy a loaf of bread. So the question is, how does the citizens not revolted all this time, a year and a half? And therefore, how can they continue to operate like this? Some people say that they're operating and establishing these memorandums of understandings with a rear effective rate of 13.10. I just don't see how citizens can continue to go like this when it costs so much. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, the first thing I was thinking is that was the question they were asking about Vietnam. They said, well, how can Vietnam for decades continue with, like this for their citizens? Well, they did have a closed system, and they did have an arrangement with China that they were able to supply the people, even though they had a subpar currency. Remember, Soudani went into office promising that they would have real purchasing power within a year. Well, that year was up on January 1st, and there have been protests and things of that nature. It's a very complicated matter, and it always seems to take longer than people hope. That's why I'm, putting my trust in Trump, because I think Trump is the guy that can push this thing through. But I will say this: 13.10 cannot continue. It just simply cannot continue. One other thing to point to is a lot of the central banks have entered into currency swaps with Iraq, which are absolutely worthless at 13.10. So the only way that was done is there has to be an understanding among the countries, undisclosed, as to what they can expect for a rate very near future. So they've managed to get by at 13.10, but that absolutely is not going to continue. As a matter of fact, I've said on other calls that if they don't get this done relatively shortly, Iraq could become a failed nation state. So, that's another reason why my argument is it's got to happen, because they can't continue with 1310. They just can't do it.
Do you know anybody that lives in Iraq? I mean, I'm looking at a gallon of milk costs 412 Iraqi dinar. How can a citizen carry that kind of money around? I mean, that's like, the old saying, you need a wheelbarrow full of money to buy a loaf of bread. I mean, how do they operate?
Well, I'll tell you how they're doing it. I happen to have my nephew served 2 tours in Iraq, and then he was there working security for American diplomats. And the way they did it is a barter system. They just circumvented the currency altogether, and I'll trade you a dozen eggs for a quart of milk, or whatever deal they worked out. But that can't continue either. So
yeah,
we've just reached the point where they have to. I'm telling you, Trump's behind the scenes, twisting arms, pounding the table. He's talking about sanctions. Tariffs for Iraq. I say, why would he have tariffs on Iraq? Just to shake them out of the doldrums and say, dude, revalue your currency. Stop taking out the slide rule and doing. Go ahead.
I think that might be why he's over there now. I mean, Iraq's supposed to be holding some big summit. I don't know if he's going to attend, but you got to feel that with all the countries he's visiting in the Middle East, that's got to be on his mind. Iraq has to. So I'm pulling for Trump. Get this done, and I'm with you. I think we're close. I feel sorry for the citizens having to, for a year and a half, have to carry a wheelbarrow around.
Yeah, I understand. Well, another thing Trump mentioned, he was talking about Iran and wanting to work with Iran, and even talking about the Iranian rial revaluing. Well, I don't see any way in hell that the rial is going to revalue if the Iraqi dinar doesn't. So, it's just a lot going on. This guy's got 10 things going on. I don't know how he does. He must not sleep, because every day I get up and there's like 10 things going on. And Biden was, he basically did nothing. Absolutely nothing, and this guy is just all over the place. So, and the other thing is, the United States has a ton of dinar, IQD. So I'm sure he's looking at that and saying, look, what's good for you is really good for us too. So believe me, I'm sure he's doing everything that can be done, and I think he's going to help deliver the goods very, very shortly.
One last question, and that is in regards, if he uses the IQD to eliminate our debt, how is he going to play that out in our media? How do you foresee that happening without us being exposed as okay, we covered our debt, but look, us citizens that are holding dinar, they're going to say now there's a bunch of millionaires out there too, because there's people that hold dinar. How do you think that'll play out in the media?
Well, there's a couple of things he can do. Let's say, I hear he's got 4 trillion dinar. So let's say he has 4 trillion dinar, and let's say he gets $4 for it. Okay, so what's that? 16 trillion dinar. We got a national debt of 36 trillion. So he's basically wiping out a little more than a third of the debt. He could take that money and just reduce the debt. He could take that money and spend it on the infrastructure and other things to substantially increase revenues to the government, and then use that money to reduce the debt. Or he could end the Federal Reserve and say, we're going to do you a favor. We're not going to put you in jail. So I think this may be aggressive. I think his plan is to end the Federal Reserve and substantially reduce, if not eliminate, the federal income tax, period. That's what I think he's doing. I think he's going back and he's looking. He keeps referring to a new golden age, and I've said this before. He's referring to the first golden age, between 1880 and 1910, referred to as the Gilded Age, when the United States became very wealthy. They had no Federal Reserve. They had no central bank. They had no federal income tax. They had bonds, and they had tariffs. And I think that's the direction he's headed.
I'll close by agreeing with you 100%. I think for everybody that's on this call holding dinar, that if he's going to end the Fed, the dinar is the key to doing that, and that's good for us. I mean, that, to me, if he's going to end the Fed and use that money to reduce, that's got to be a positive for us, because it is the key to everything. And maybe just keep it under wraps, keep it under wraps and just do it.
There's something else he could do. It's never talked about, but the reason I thought this was possible is he started off with no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security. Now, that's huge, no tax on Social Security. But there's something else he could do. He could call the profit from the exchange of currencies cap gain rather than ordinary income, which means, once again, if you had purchased 10 million dinar for $10,000, basically all of its profit, well, the difference between that being 44.6% or 28%, I mean, that's huge. So
yeah.
I just think he's trying to take the federal government's allowance away, and one of the things he's doing is you don't need all that money. That's what Doge is all about, to stop, just like or what he's doing on the border. He's starting off with, we're just getting rid of the criminals. We're not getting rid of everyone that's here illegally, just the criminals. So he always starts with something that theoretically no one should have a problem with, although the people on the left they hate. Doesn't matter what he does. He could cure cancer, and they'll say he created a population problem. It doesn't matter what he does. But, I think he's really, really got grandiose ideas, and he's the kind of guy that could pull it off.
I do too. Jim, thank you, and load up on that
sir.
Bible. I hope you get to feeling better.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye now. Okay, our next caller is area code 810. That's 810. Go ahead.
Hi, Jim. This is Diane.
Hi, Diane.
I have a question in regards to when you first opened up. You were talking about the trust. I can't remember what the name of it was. When you want to leave money for maybe a church or some type of organization like that.
Yes, that's called a charitable remainder trust, meaning that whatever remains in the trust when the individual passes away goes to the named charity or charities.
Okay, and you said this, that while the money is in there, it's like you're getting interest-free money. Now, if I understand you correctly, so how does that work? If you're still alive, will you be able to tap into that and draw?
That's what I'm saying. Let's say you had $1 million in a charitable remainder trust that was going to go to your church when you passed away, and let's say you were earning just 5% on the money. That 5%, which is whatever amount that is, that's all tax-free to you, because the principal is going to the charity. You're not getting a deduction for the charity post-mortem. You're getting tax-free income in exchange for that post-mortem gift.
Okay, so then you're getting that on a monthly basis, or how does that work?
Depends on what you're investing in.
Okay,
that's all. Depends on. Now, the other way to look at it is, because you're getting tax-free income, theoretically you can invest it more conservatively, because everything you earn on it's tax-free.
Okay, so I guess I'm trying to make sure exactly what you're saying. So you're putting this in this trust, and you're investing in. You put $1 million in the trust. When you die, that $1 million goes to your church, and you put all of that money in a CD paying you 5%. That 5% is tax-free to you, because it's interest on the money in the charitable remainder trust. Okay, so Okay, now I get what you're saying. So when you put it in this CD, you're getting this. If I put it up, if I set it up to where I want to have it monthly, so the monthly interest will come to me.
It doesn't matter how you receive the money. The issue is that however you receive it, there's no tax paid on it.
Okay. That's
right.
it. That's what I want to make sure of. Okay, thank you so much.
Sure. Take care now.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Mm-hmm. Bye.
Okay, our next caller is area code 509. That's 509. Go ahead.
Well, hello there, Jim. This is Art out in the left coast. And great to talk to you. This is awesome. You've been so busy that you just only have time to be able to circle the wagons, give you a conversation, and get off.
Yep.
That's the nature of my call is that with the number of U.S. citizens that have currencies, whether it be dinar, dong, rupiah, or whatever it may be, bolivar, to include, of course, Zim is not a currency, it's a bond. Have you heard of a gentleman by the name of Dave XRP Lyon?
That name does sound familiar. That name does sound familiar.
Well, you're so busy, you're inundated with what you're doing. If you have, that's great. But what he has done, he is created and it's been approved by people such as Ben Carson, for example, a manner, basically forms that you would fill out prior to going to your exchange that has a listing of all the currencies, individual currencies, or I should say individual bills, call it that, with the serial numbers and what have you in order, so that when you go to the exchange, that you will be received in a much better light from the standpoint that you can't just really go in with, say, like you talked about 10 million dinar. Well, you can't come in and so, okay, dump 10 million dinar on the table and go, this is what I got.
Well, no, you'd have it all laid out. You'd have it all in writing, serial numbers and all of that. That's just what you're talking about is an accounting issue. You want to go in there and present it in a very professional way, minimizes time, substantiates what you've actually got, allows them to review it in a timely fashion. So yeah, of course you want to do that. I'm sure there are people that will go in there. I'm sure there are people that have currencies that just got them a long time ago because someone told them to, or they were given to them. They forgot all about them. And then this thing hits, and then they, all of a sudden they realize, I got to go to the bank. And, it takes all kinds. Some people will go in there and be very organized and together, and other people are going to go in with a paper bag and dump it on the table. But you're right. The way, for your own sake, you want to know exactly what you have because you don't want the bank to screw around with you. And if you don't like what the bank's saying, go to another bank.
Right. And of course, they will have De La Rue machines at the banks or the center.
At the center, right.
Because it's really not sure at this junction whether it will be a bank or a center, such as with military, at a military installation, the security and all this. There's a lot of moving parts that's going to be involved with this. But what I would recommend, that people listen to is on Rumble and on X or Twitter, however you want to look at it. You can look him up, and he has amazing information that.
Well, I appreciate that.
Purposes.
I will put him on my long list of people to listen to. If you just pick up one thing from it, from my standpoint, it's worth it. But once the dinar hits the Forex, me personally, not for Trusts Unlimited, although they'll use it, and I've already talked to some banks, but I'm just going to call them up and say, okay, the day has arrived. This is what I want to know. I want to know what kind of can we expect in terms of turnaround at the point of exchange? Are we going to get the best rate? What are the transaction fees? I just want to know that from you. And they're going to say, well, what if other people? I said, that's between you and me. What we discuss, I won't discuss it with anyone else, and vice versa. And we'll try to get that out to everyone. We spoke to the following bank. Sure. This is what they told us. If you walk in with our trust, this is the deal you're going to get. But half of the people will have already run to the bank with their hair on fire because they're not going to wait a week, or they're going to, or at least they'll go to the bank and exchange a substantial amount just to clean up some things. The issue, though, that people need to understand is the timing. If the dinar hits the Forex very late in a quarter, according to Section 988E2 of the Internal Revenue Code, the taxable event is the point of the increase, not the point of exchange. So we may be hamstrung in terms of timing, because if you go to the bank and they say, well, we got to hold the money for 5 days, well, the taxes are due on the 15th of the month. It's the 7th. You're cutting this real close. So we're going to be a little bit hamstrung with the timing. So it just is what it is, and we're going to have to do the best we can, depending upon the timing. But the thing would be for it to happen, say, in the first month of a quarter. We go in, like you say, everything all laid out. We sit there, we negotiate with them. We can go to another bank, or we say, I'm going to exchange at 3 banks. I'm not going to do it at 1 bank, So, but that's a problem we all want. Sitting here waiting for it to happen is one thing, So that's a problem we all want. Okay?
Right. And just a matter of being prepared. That's the biggest thing, I think. And to be able to do like you're saying.
That's what we try to do with these calls, help people get prepared.
One thing real quick, have you heard any rumblings in regards to, there's going to be people that have, a 25,000 dinar note or 250s or whatever the case may be. There's probably not as many people really that have, as you're indicating, 10 million, which most individuals listening to this call and have gotten trusts have that amount or more, actually. If your rumblings as far as how many citizens of America have currencies by chance?
The only thing I've heard is the number now that has not just the dinar, all currencies is between 15 and 20 million people. That's the number they throw around. I don't know where it comes from, but that's the number I tend to hear. Somewhere between 15 and 20 million people have pre-valued currencies. I would assume that at least half of that's dinar. The other half are some of these other currencies we've talked about. We have one guy that has 500 million dinar and 500 million dong.
Wow.
I don't know. Unless he's found the cure for the solution for immortality. I don't know how you're going to spend all of that, but I'm.
Well, that's what the trust gives you, immortality, doesn't it?
Well, in a sense.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
You can control people from the grave, but I don't know how much of that. I certainly would.
The thing is, the beautiful thing of a trust is you've put together and you've developed a legacy for your family from here, as long as there's the United States of America.
Right. Well, the only control mechanism I like about the trust is if you have minor children that can't be making decisions, or you have someone for some reason just is incapable of managing money. We have clients that call and say, my son was in a car accident. He's a quadriplegic. My son's been in and out of jail for drugs, things like that. You don't give people like that a lump sum. Right. So what they'll do is they create a situation where they pay all of the person's bills, and they give them a little bit of walking around money. And, if they don't like it, the other option is you get nothing. But you're not, I'm not going to give you a lump sum. You should be glad that, right. All your basic needs are met. And then at certain ages, if they behave themselves, then that gets really complicated. There aren't too many situations like that, but there's a lot of things you can do with trust if you need to.
Right. Well, that's about what I've got. I thank you very kindly. Keep on keeping on. God bless you, sir. And take a look at that David XRP Lion. He's got a wealth of information. Yeah. Okay, bye for now.
Take care now. Bye-bye.
All right.
Okay, our next caller is area code 310. That's 310. Go ahead.
Hi, Jim. It's Larry. Question regarding the dong. I was looking to try to find entities to purchase it from at reasonably priced, and I found one that basically is very close to the actual exchange rate called Wise. And what they do apparently is you purchase the currency and then they have their online account. So you can either exchange it for other currencies or move it. You can exchange it back to dollars and then move it in those dollars into your bank account that you have connected with the Wise account. Is that something that's reasonable to do for the dong to purchase that? And if that's the case, if you personally purchase it, does that make sense, or do you need the trust to purchase it?
Well, no, you'll purchase the currency, and the currency is assigned to the trust. So you're operating as an individual when it comes to purchasing the currencies, but you've already got a document which basically says any and all pre-valued currencies in my possession or that I should subsequently acquire is hereby assigned to the trust. So it's an open-ended in-kind assignment where any currencies you purchase, pre-valued in nature, are automatically assigned to the trust. Now, I'm not familiar with Wise. It does sound like a good idea, but I personally wouldn't deal with them until I had some people kick the tires and find out exactly who they are. Because the more options that people provide generally means more control. And if I'm going to give someone more control, then I want to make sure they're for real. So did you say it's Wise, W-I-S-E?
Yeah.
Okay, that's it, just Wise.
Yeah, and they're listed sort of if you're going to be traveling, they have like 50 currencies that you can choose from and purchase that. And I think they work with a credit card if you want to spend it in France or England,
Well, it does sound like a good idea, but like I said, personally, if it were me, I wouldn't deal with them until I got the okay from either a private investigator or someone that I trust or someone that knows them personally. So I put that down with a big question mark, so that's another one I got to check out after this call.
Okay.
But I appreciate the information.
You're welcome. And then banks, like let's just say Bank of America or Chase, if they're selling the dong, do they usually sell it at pretty much close to the exchange rate with just a minimal transaction fee?
I don't think the rate that you would get from the bank would differ too much from if you went to, say, iBuy or someone like that. But the mere fact that they're selling the currency tells you that they believe in the currency. Why would they be selling it if they, banks don't do stuff like that unless there's a nice payday somewhere along the line. The commission they make on the sale is very little relative to what would be happening if it's actually. In other words, they would concentrate on selling currencies they know are legit, that these people will most likely go back to that bank to exchange it if they bought it from that bank. So if they're selling a currency at their bank, it's because someone in the upper echelons decided that currency is going to pop at some point.
Right, because I see like a number of places will sell, but they'll sell at a premium, and the banks should just sell you basically around the exchange rate, right, if they're selling it.
If they're selling it. Although, generally speaking, banks are let me put it this way. I'm going to the bank to exchange my currency or the exchange center because that's the only place I can go. I don't like banks. I probably shouldn't say that. I just don't like banks. I don't like the way they work. Remember, they were telling us the dinar and the dong and all these were scams. And a lot of their employees didn't buy the currencies, and then the story came out about Wells Fargo, it came out that the upper echelon were telling them they were scams because they knew that if their employees purchased the currency, they would quit, and then the bank wouldn't be able to process everything, and they'd go to other banks. So, they're not bad people, but banks are about banks, okay? So, you just got to go full Jed Clampett with these people and say, my money, my way, or I'll see you.
Okay. Thank you.
Certainly. Okay. Take care now. Bye-bye. Okay, our next caller is area code 757. That's 757. Go ahead.
Hey, Jim. I have a quick question. A while back, you had mentioned where we could purchase some dinar from. What was the name of that company?
One of them was iBuyDinar.com, and there's another one that I actually wanted to go to, and I forgot the name of it. Doggone it. Give me a second. There was another one I liked that I purchased some currency from, and just yesterday I was contemplating buying some more, and I thought I wrote it down. I could not find the name of them. My memory's not where it used to be, and I just didn't do it. I'm gonna be looking for it.
It wasn't Safe Dinar, was it?
There it is, SafeDinar.com. Thank you.
Okay. I know I purchased through them, and I was trying to see. I got a few extra dollars. I think I'm gonna get some more.
Yeah, I'm gonna buy some today too. But I buy today. Thank you so much. You saved me a half hour or digging through boxes. That's it. How could you forget SafeDinar.com? I mean, it's so simple.
Okay.
Yeah.
So both of them are pretty good to buy from. Okay.
Well, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna pull up the websites of both just to see if they have rates on there. Just to take a look and see what they're doing. But I want to pick up a little bit more dinar, Iraqi dinar today, and I just got a round off a number. I like round numbers, so I'm just going to buy a few more to just get to a nice round number and call it a day. But thanks for telling me that. That saved me some time.
And the other question I had, you had mentioned things we can do after after the RV takes off. Will you still be doing that? Will you still be giving us advice on what we should do with our money?
We will probably be providing general information. The attorneys are very skeptical of giving specifics because we're not investment advisors. So we can go far enough to say this is what I'm going to do with the money, but we have to stop at this is what you should do with the money. But we are talking to some people we may bring on board. I'm investigating a few things too. Although myself personally, I'm thinking about purchasing a bunch of homes that are on the market. Maybe they're not dilapidated, but they're not in the best of shape. Get them for a real good price. Hire a company to go in there and just give them a fresh coat of paint and clean them up and everything, and just rent and or sell, flip them. So I'm thinking about doing that. But I don't want to do too much because when this is over, I'm not a young man. I frankly want to chill.
Okay.
Real estate can be time consuming. Yes, sir. You take care.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Bye-bye now. Well, that was our last caller for this afternoon. I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call. Again, if the things we've discussed are of interest, I strongly suggest you contact us to get our initial no-obligation package. Again, you can contact us by email or phone. Our email address is trustsunlimitedllc@gmail.com, and our phone service is 307-274-4122. Our next call is scheduled for next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Certainly, if something of dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, we'll try to get out an emergency email and schedule an emergency conference call. But again, failing that, we'll be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Thanks for listening, everyone. Have a great week. Things are looking great. God bless.